Well, afternoon, everybody. I want to talk to you about trauma or trauma. Take your pick. I always get the two mixed up. And it's a very emotive word, isn't it? You know, we hear this word trauma, and we think, oh, blimey, it must be joking. It's something like nearly dying in a car crash or surviving cancer or, well, I wouldn't even, would you describe divorce and the loss of a loved one as trauma? Maybe, maybe not. But, you know, for most of us, we're not really keen on the word because it implies being a victim and all kinds of things. But actually, and with certainty, certainly if you reach my age, you've had a few, and that applies to everybody. So, how were we traumatised in the first place? Well, I doubt if many of you know this, but were you conceived from a position of love or violence? And were you wanted? Were your needs met? What was your mother's mental state during the time you were in the womb? What happened during birth? What happened after birth? Did your parents want a boy and were you born a girl and vice versa? And did your parents sacrifice their own needs during your childhood? And if they did they do this willingly or were they resentful? And were you abused in any way as a child? How many of you were treated as an autonomous person in your own right? Or were you daddy's girl or mummy's boy? And did your parents attempt to fulfill their suppressed needs and desires through you? And this isn't about blame. But would you describe your parents as completely hang-up and issue-free? Your siblings, if you have any, did they have any issues or traumatic episodes themselves? And did you have any family secrets? Well, of course, there are many things. This is during the early years, but the point should be obvious. And if you want to do the research, if you're wondering, the stress during pregnancy has been scientifically proven to adversely affect brain development in the fetus. The reptilian brain, as opposed to the more spiritually orientated frontal lobes. And in your adult life, has anyone betrayed you? Have you betrayed anyone? Have you taken on the blame for someone else's actions? And why does it always rain on you? But of course, you got over this, didn't you? You get over it. No lasting effects, because that's life. But maybe you can't remember much of it. Oh, and by the way, we model and copy the behaviour of significant others when we're kids. Parents, other family members, or authority figures. Obviously, especially during the first 6 or 7 years. This is how we become who we are. This is how the psyche develops. Well, maybe as a child you were wanted, loved and protected. And maybe you can't remember the times you felt unwanted, unloved and unprotected. But even the perfect parents can't deliver on these 100% of the time. It's impossible. And serious things may have happened to you, unknown to your parents, or those things that you felt unable to share with them. And in later life, have you ever felt unwanted, unloved and unprotected? After any kind of trauma, the psyche splits into 3 parts. The healthy part, which continues to grasp reality and function normally. Then we have the traumatized part, in which unbearable feelings caused by the trauma are encapsulated. For example, the feelings of fear, pain, anger, shame and disgust. And the third part is the trauma survival stress part, where the trauma disappears into a fog. It may be denied and is no longer felt or remembered, but it's replaced with an illusory world. And it's obvious we rarely show traumatised behaviours. And if you doubt this, just watch people on the television who might later admit to being traumatised. But when you see them, they're acting normally, just like you and me for almost all of the time. And of course we need trauma survival strategies. It's part of who we are. And yet the problem is, unless the trauma is resolved, these strategies persist throughout our lives as if the original danger still existed. So instead of perceiving and feeling freely, we constantly have to do and act. And we may live in a world of our own creation of overexcitation. We may deal with the stress through addictions, eating, spending, never being still. We may deal with it through distractions, the internet, mobile phones, mindless television, and we'll convince ourselves all this is normal. Indeed, we will convince ourselves that we have to do it. And we may also lose ourselves in busyness, endless thinking, poor sleeping habits, and an inability to stay in the moment. And the greatest disservice we will ever do to ourselves is to deny that any or all of this is a problem for us. See you in the next video. Have a great day. It's all capable of resolution.